Steve, we're here at Matchroom HQ. 2 years ago, you sat down with Stephen Hendry to discuss the state of snooker and what was happening. I don't have 7 world titles, but I'm pleased to be here with you to maybe follow up on some of those questions. So he started by asking you about the health of snooker in 2023. How do you see it in 2025?
We're looking at increased ticket sales, increased sponsorship, increased social media coverage, and of course, increased prize money for the players. The barometers are all great, and we look forward to continuing that vein.
I'm sure people will be interested to know, how do you raise prize money? Where does that revenue come from? Is that just commercial revenue that you've built up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we commercialise the sport. We generate income to pay the players. So in the last 2 years, obviously, we've increased prize money substantially by introducing new events and repurposing older events. So obviously, we've in the last 2 years, we've included the Saudi Masters, which is a huge addition to the second biggest event that we've got on the calendar now. We've had an interesting invitation event, the 167 event for the top players. We repurposed the World Grand Prix in Hong Kong. That was hugely successful. Kai Tak Stadium was a wonderful event. And also, of course, we've generated a lot more income from WST play. So
are the prize money levels where you want them to be? Can we expect them to increase even more?
Yes, that's part of the game, isn't it? We're trying to maximise the players' return by prize money.
The World Darts Champion next year will earn £1 million, twice as much as the World Snooker Champion. Why is darts different? Why is that disparity?
It's so difficult to compare the two sports because clearly they have a lot more revenue streams available to them. Just the amount of beer that's sold in the venues. I mean, they don't pay for their venues, they pay it in beer tokens. And also, of course, their TV, their host broadcaster deal effectively doubled in rights fee going forward. So that's obviously enables them to pay higher prize money.
I think it's the one sport, though, darts, that snooker players sort of look at because maybe it's the closest to snooker. The World Championship prize money hasn't risen since 2019. Is that likely to change?
Yeah, of course. We review it every year, and we look at the balance of what's available, what we think is a reasonable level, and obviously it's dependent on the commercial success of the business, and we will pass on to the players via prize money those elements.
Is it possible then in the next few years the World Snooker Champion could earn £1 million?
Absolutely possible. Yeah, it would certainly require some massive change in the revenue structure, but absolutely it's one of our objectives.
I don't think anyone would argue the calendar is packed. There's a lot of events. Is there room for even more? Are there any on the horizon, new ones?
Yeah, and we're constantly reviewing. And obviously the Middle East has been extremely good for us, and there's an awful lot more scope to have more events in the Middle East. We've got 3 or 4 big countries looking at snooker seriously. We're also looking at Southeast Asia and all those territories, and of course China with Zhao Jingtong. We're really hopeful that we'll be able to have a mega event, the China Open, into that territory. So
the China Open would be worth even more than the other Chinese events if it came back?
Yes, absolutely, quite possibly. It's still in negotiation, and that's our objective, is to make all the new events bigger and better.
You recently extended the Eurosport contract for another 5 years, which is obviously good news for fans in Europe. But I rewatched your interview with Stephen, and you said you wanted more events in mainland Europe. Since then, there's actually fewer, because there were 2 then, there's 1 now. So what's happening in that market?
Yeah, it's difficult for us. I've got to be absolutely honest. We are looking and continue. Obviously, the spread we get, coverage we get via Eurosport, is bringing in more players from mainland Europe, from Poland, from Latvia, etc. And I think until those players come through and become established pros, it's going to be difficult for us to establish events because they need local talent and local interest. But we continue the search.
I mean, I know you don't just stick a sort of pin in the map and say we'll go there, but like Luca Brissell obviously won the World Championship. People just assume there'd be an event in Belgium. Can you explain maybe the complexity of just, you know, saying, oh, well, let's just go there and see what happens? I guess you've got to be sort of responsible to the financial side.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that when we add events, that they're sustainable. Because if you're just going out willy-nilly, creating events that are just not profitable and not sustainable, you may do it for 1 or 2 years, but you won't create a series of events for forevermore, a bit like Germany.
What about sponsorship? It seems there has been a sea change in the type of sponsors snooker is attracting. You know, do you see that trend continuing?
Very much hope so. You know, I'm really proud of our commercial team, obviously the introduction of Halo, Tom's and Johnston's Paint. It's not enough. We're still reliant on our betting friends, and of course they pay more than most sponsors. So it's something we're working really hard on and work in progress.
Why do you think snooker doesn't attract more of them? Because we have, you know, hours and hours on television, including, you know, the national broadcast of the BBC. Is it sort of an image problem, do you think, maybe?
There's no doubt that there's a perception issue. You know, I've lost count of the number of people that say my granddad used to watch and all the rest of it. But we are definitely creating. I mean, I think we need and are working very hard at the moment on changing that perception in the eye of the sponsor. They look at our numbers that we're achieving and they're impressed. But they have, of course, it's a hugely competitive market, the sponsorship market. They have a lot of choices to make. And on the basis on which they make those choices, dependent on their business at the time and how they operate and what they're looking at as an emphasis. So our job is to get into those companies, understand what they want and deliver what they want.
On broadcasters, you know, we do have quite a wide range now, and you know, there's different packages people need to pay for, or there's free to air. How satisfied are you with the sort of range of broadcasting partners you have?
I think as a sport, we punch above our weight in that respect. We have a very wide range of broadcast contracts in every sense. I mean, obviously, the BBC extension to 2032 is a massive thing for us. In fact, I was seeing the other day that BBC are getting rid of a lot of the I think the Oxford and Cambridge race has gone, but 5 or 6 of their other sporting events have gone. And we're an elite sport with the BBC, and that's really fundamental for our business. It's a fulcrum. Obviously, we've got Channel 5 coming up next year, and it'd be really interesting to see their take on snooker, new production team, new broadcaster, different ideas, and we'll be working with them on that. And I think I mentioned earlier, WST Play picks up all the dark territories. So I'm really pleased with and obviously we've got Eurosport, which is a massive, you know, obviously being involved with Warner Brothers Discovery.
How would you describe the current relationship between World Snooker Tour and the players?
We've got 128 players to look after, and they all have different ages, different gender, different nationalities. So there's always going to be some disruption. But it's really important that the players understand that if they have any issues, they should go to the players board.
I suppose the obvious question then is, if it's a good relationship, why have they set up their own association?
I honestly have no idea. It came a bit of a bolt in the blue from us. We really are trying to encourage them to go talk to the players board. The players board is there for this very purpose. They have a huge amount of knowledge that we've discussed over how the events work and why they work the way they work they do. So we need to encourage that, and actually I think it would be a good thing if there. I mean, I'm not sure whether the PSPA is actually for the top players or for 128. I think they've recently said it was for the benefit of 128 players, which is great. But but I think they should go through the formal process, the existing scheme.
But I guess the point is they're not, are they? I mean, I spoke to a couple of players who have said, and I've got no way of proving this, but it's just no point because they say they get no feedback and they don't feel it's worthwhile, hence they've sort of banded together. I mean, I can't speak to the motivations behind the association, but something's broken down somewhere, hasn't it?
I mean, it's obviously maybe something that the WPBSA need to look at internally. We're here ready, willing and able to discuss any issue at any time. In fact, it's one of my pet hates. Why do certain people actually go to the press to make a point? Because it's so negative. It has such a detrimental effect on our business. At the same time, we're talking to sponsors and broadcasters, you know, and there we are airing our differences in public. Well, what are they going to do? Who's the ultimate loser of that? The player. So I'd much rather see players go behind the scenes, talk to us directly, air all their issues. I've no idea what the issues are with the Players Board. They need to iron those out with this new body, and hopefully we can have one voice coming from them so that we can consider all their issues.
Well, one issue that has been aired is travel. Neil Robertson recently spoke about travel to China. We're just coming up to the Xi'an Grand Prix. The players will be flying out to that, then they fly back for a tournament in Belfast, then they fly back to China for the International Championship. I'm sure you must have thought of having events back to back in China. Can you explain why that doesn't happen?
Yeah, look, the Chinese events, the promoters and the TV broadcasters out there, CCTV5, do not want events back to back. It just does not work for them. It doesn't make any sense from a broadcast perspective. The promoters want to have particular weeks. As you know, there's a wide range in climate change in China, so it may not work by moving around at the same time. And you know, if you took it to its logical extension, and we did have a China swing, what would happen in the UK? Would the BBC want to have the World Championships, the UK Champs and the Masters all back to back? No, they wouldn't. It would make no sense whatsoever to their scheduling or the storyline that they assist us with. So, and actually, when you think about it, I'm not sure even the players would really want it. Imagine if you lost in the first round of one event, you've got 8 or 9 days before the next event. So what are you going to do? And maybe you lose in that one, so you've got another 8 or 9 days. Are you going to go backwards and forwards? Are you going to stay out there and pay for accommodation? Doesn't make any sense.
You do recognise, I mean, Neil Robertson brought up the fact that the sort of effect it was having on maybe the health of the players or the travel. There's a cost, and also there's environmental issues, I guess, doing all the flying.
Sure.
So it is an issue. It doesn't sound like it's easily resolvable, but do you accept it is an issue for the players? And maybe that leads into some of the sort of complaining, the fact that it's not a physical sport, but they are kind of pushing the stamina and their bodies a bit, just travelling.
Yeah, I accept that, but as I explained, even there would still be issues if they were to do the events back to back, because they would have to make a decision whether they go backwards and forwards. I mean, in terms of finances, we actually up their first round prize money to cover the additional costs. We do try and make small swings, 2 and 3 events, where we can, and to try and minimise it. But you know, I'm sure, I'm sorry to say this, but it comes with the territory. Every sportsman, professional sportsman, travels a lot.
Do we still rely a little bit too much on the older players? I mean, we know Ronnie O'Sullivan is a legend. We were in Jeddah when he made the 2 maximums. It was incredible. But I guess at some point we do have to look to the future and maybe try and foreground the younger players a bit more.
They're at the top of the rankings because of their merit. They are playing better snooker, better all-round snooker. And it does take a long time for young players to understand every nuance and aspect of snooker. So I don't think I'm concerned about the future, because I think those players are coming through and learning from the older players. Without the older players, they haven't got the experience to gain.
We're in the Matchroom headquarters here, where the cameras spent a lot of time for the Netflix series The Greatest Showman. How happy were you with how snooker was represented on that programme?
I thought the documentary was tremendous. But I think, and I've obviously read the comments that people are not happy with the snooker content. I wasn't happy with the amount of coverage that the snooker got on the type of coverage it got. But you mustn't forget that there's a storyline here, and this was more about Eddie Hearn taking over the business from Barry Hearn, and boxing and all the glamorous bits. And to be honest, it was all done with a bit of tongue in cheek. That's the way I saw it. And look, we promote our sport through social media. 5.8 million followers around the world. That's where we're concentrating on our image. Documentaries are going to come and go. Maybe the next time we'll have a snooker documentary and we can correct all that.
But I mean, millions of people will have watched it around the world, and they would have seen Eddie going to Brentwood with his pigeon on the loose and the lights going out in Saudi Arabia. And that was basically it. And maybe to people who don't follow snooker, their sort of view of it after that would not necessarily be positive. I mean, you must be disappointed, given the publicity the other sports as part of Matchroom got, that snooker not only was barely featured, but was featured negatively. It
was part of their storyline. They wanted some amusement, and it happened to be snooker. It fell upon. Don't think it was deliberate. We didn't get editorial control over the storyline. They did themselves. Again, I think you've got to look at it in context of what the main objective it was, which was to promote boxing, Eddie Hearn, Barry Hearn, and darts. But does it tie into a sort of general problem of snooker's image? I mean, and what can be done within the sport? We can't rely on necessarily the producer of a Netflix documentary, but what can we do in the sport maybe to change some of the perceptions? Well, again, we're working hard on social media. That's where I see we can change the perception. A much younger audience views our products, and the quality of our products is immense on social media. So that's where we're going to concentrate going forward. Well, speaking of social media, at the British Open, one of the players who lost came off, went on Instagram and had a death threat from somebody. Now, obviously, unfortunately, that is the world we live in, but A, what can World Snooker Tour do about that? And B, you want players to project their personalities, and that's got to be good for the sport, but what's in it for them if that's what they're going to get? He's tried his hardest to win a match, he's disappointed. Also, it's kind of concerning because he might not be on there now, and that's another player we've lost from it. It's terrible. It's a terrible world we live in, isn't it? I mean, unfortunately, we're not immune from those threats. I mean, all we can do is support the players where they have an issue. And the WPBSA is set up to look after the welfare of the players. They are, every player that comes onto the tour has a 2-day induction at Lillishall. A large proportion of that is about how to deal with social media abuse and welfare generally. We also had a lot of mental illness, like all sports, but some well-known issues with Ronnie and I think Mark Selby a while ago. And I'm very pleased to say that the support systems worked in that and will continue to be provided for them. Can you do anything about social media abuse? I don't know whether this player's reported it to you or not, but is there a sort of mechanism in place to at least report it to the relevant sort of social media channel? I absolutely think there is, and it should be done. I'm assuming that would be done. The players shouldn't suffer in silence. They should be able to have a contact point. They can ring someone confidentially and they can take a view whether it's a police matter. And that would be the Players Board again for WPBSA. And a slightly different point, but still on the players, do you think they do enough actually under their own steam? We have certain players like Sean Murphy, he has a podcast, he has a YouTube channel. But as a collective, could they do more themselves rather than maybe relying on World Snooker Tour and others to promote the sport? I think it's improved dramatically over the last couple of years. We provide them with the materials now to enable them to come straight off the table and make posts. And they are a very valuable asset to us in terms of social media. So I wouldn't want to criticise the players. They can always do better, but I think it's a good start.
Can't believe we got this far without mentioning the Crucible, Steve, which feels like a long-running saga, but obviously it's one snooker fans all around the world are interested in hearing about. We were told by Barry Hearn at the Crucible this year that by the end of this year we would know pretty much what was happening. So we're into October now. Do you have any update for us?
I've got no update for you at all at the moment. I think we're talking with Sheffield and we're having constructive conversations. And hopefully we'll have something to share in December, but these things take a long time.
In cricket they have win-viz, don't they, like the match result. If we had that on this, would you want to put a percentage on the chance of staying at the Crucible?
I wouldn't like to be drawn on that.
Okay. So by the end of the year still we'll know, do you think?
I think we may have more information by the end of the year, but again, it's a very complex issue.
Well, in general, on venues, I mean, the Crucible, I was actually there this week in Sheffield, and sort of rationally, you could argue in this new sort of age of commercialism, there's no reason to have it there. But when you get there, you understand why it's there, if you know what I mean. When you get to the Crucible, you can understand it. But in terms of other venues, you know, we went to Manchester Central, which I thought was a step forward. Are we likely to upgrade a few venues? Brentwood, obviously on that documentary, didn't go down well. It was full though of people. But is there a kind of strategy to maybe upgrade some of the venues? Absolutely.
We're constantly looking to upgrade all our venues. It's not as easy as it sounds. Snooker is quite a complex event to stage. A long period of time that the events last. So it's unusual. But clearly, some of the venues are too small for us. Some of them are too big, and again, every event needs to be sustainable. So we will continue to search for the perfect venue in the perfect region.
Myself or someone else sits down a couple of years from now, where will snooker be then? How will it have moved on? Will there be more events, more prize money? How do you see, you know, the near future maybe?
All our businesses are targeted in different areas. So our commercial team, our social media team, I'd say it bigger and better and more globalised. We've got huge interest in other Middle East countries, and so again, Southeast Asia is going to be a hotbed for us. And again, if we could get the European dimension right, I think we have a more truly global sport. In terms of prize money, clearly we want to increase the prize money constantly, but we'll do that in a sustainable way.
Good. Well, it sounds like a busy few years. Thanks a lot for taking the time to speak to us, Steve.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.